just listened to a young girl who was saying that the Nigerian community here is totally very angry. Covers all the aspects of various sections of our journalism.
This was the Ijaw country of the Niger Delta of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He went to several schools. His major academic genesis was at the government college, Ujeli.
Go gather, destroy their food. Make cultivated camp and that other camp, Tongo camp. You don't compensate everybody.
In its key generation sometimes. Today our program can be in the style of J.P. Flag, a poet and writer, and we shall also be very interested in his point Akmo dancer.
Some lives are meaningful, some are empty. There are lives that are meaningful, with too much meaning and riches to offer humankind. After some of these earthly adventures and more, one can still find footprints of these great lives on the pavements of our contemporary lives.
Good evening, you're welcome to the program Green Planet.
So I will be talking on harnessing sustainable development via a more active participation of the Cameroonian diaspora. And the title was well selected, and the use of harnessing is present continuous, and it is suggestive of the fact that this process is continuous, and it's a procedural something that we need to achieve. And sustainable development in Cameroon is not only a trend, but it is a necessity. So it is a very well thought discussion, and I am the director of an organization that is striving to empower people through inclusive, bottom-top, not necessarily top-down approaches, so that we can have more people and stakeholders involved in development, so that development can be vulgarized and can reach the nooks and crevices of society. So that is going to be the angle that I'm going to be focusing on. This presentation seeks to establish the possibility of an increased diaspora participation in the socio-economic well-being of Cameroon. The word increase is also suggestive of the fact that there has been some participation. It just needs to be boosted. And we don't need to feel too bad that we've not been doing some things in the country. It draws arguments from academic research and local realities to establish this possibility while recognizing the existence of some infrastructural, psychological, and economic lapses that hinder the processes now, but which can be reshaped to harness a more active participation of the diaspora, both for their gains and the well-being of the state. Participating in Cameroon is not only for your well-being. A lot of people are going to be implicated by your participation. Therefore, you have to look at it in a holistic sense. It has the energy of generating change across subpopulations, and therefore it's going to affect horizontal and vertical inequalities between groups, subgroups, different subpopulations, tribes, and sections of the country. So it therefore goes with the trust, as I said, of a bottom-top, participatory, and partnership. And I'm very happy that the first two speakers have hammered on this point, because it is very necessary. And it touches on technologies and investing in the value chain, and which I also think is necessary and can only work if you identify the right stakeholders. And it needs a lot of research for you to be able to know the right stakeholders to work with in Cameroon. So, we are from Cameroon, but I think all of us don't know about Cameroon and everything, so I'm giving a background check on Cameroon. And you know it's an elongated triangle in terms of how it looks, and it's about 475,440 square kilometers, of which about 402 kilometers is a coastline. That in itself tells you that a lot of things can happen in Cameroon in terms of tourism, in terms of investment, in terms of attracting foreign direct investments. And it shares boundaries with a lot of important countries in the region. Nigeria, for once, is one of the most populous nations in Africa. Therefore, it offers a ready market for much of the things that we can produce in Cameroon. And we should be thinking about not only enjoying or producing things in Cameroon, but also acting as a hub to supplement the scarcity in neighboring countries. And of late, I asked some students in the Mbongaya University on the population of Cameroon. The guy was contemplating whether Cameroon was about 10 to 12 million, but we are about 20 million, and we occupy a very important and strategic position in the region. And of these 20 million, you have about 58.4% of the country, which is now classified as urban. Most of us still think that the majority of Cameroonians are staying in the rural areas. That is wrong, because there seems to be a systematic migration to the city centers. But these people who get to the city centers, do they meet jobs and other opportunities when they get there? Are we facing a situation where the informal economy in Cameroon has been growing in a kind of exponential manner, and then the resources of the government and the private sector is not sufficient to meet up with this kind of explosion? We shall be looking at all these aspects within this presentation. And for the monetary unit of the country, the Communauté Financière Africaine, which is the CFA, and which was originally pegged to the French franc, and it's been pegged to the euro since January 1999. And you know the European Union is facing crisis. And about 2 weeks ago, there was a report that the crisis that this region is facing has indirect or direct consequences on the economies that are pegged to that place. That should be an innovation, and that should be a motivation for us to think about how to buttress a reason to invest in Cameroon, because if we leave Cameroon, probably it might be swallowed by the tempest that is coming from without, not necessarily from within. So we have major trading partners as France, Italy, Nigeria, Spain, and Germany, and the United States of America. And the country's poverty reduction and growth rate with the IMF expired in January 2009. And with that, the country had to receive about $144 million in assistance to help protect the country from external shocks. But we are supposed to be active in shaping how we can protect the country from these external shocks. We must create a resilient country that can resist the shocks and stresses imposed from outside by implanting powerful institutions within that can resist the shocks and stresses that are coming from outside. And this is not show business, but I think we are a very peaceful nation. We have good relations with our neighbors. And the vacancy crisis, we did resolve it peacefully, and that should be something like a medal on our chest. So who are the Cameroonian diaspora? This refers to people of Cameroonian origin living abroad by free will and other forces, including social, political, and economic factors. This tallies well with Wikipedia definition that diaspora is from a Greek word which stands for scattering, dispersion, the movement, migration, or scattering of people away from an established or ancestral homeland. or people dispersed by whatever cause to more than one location. Again, scattering is also suggestive of the fact that it's a process that is continuous, and dispersion is a noun that describes a state. You are here because you are already scattered. And therefore, we should be looking at ourselves as we are part and parcel of the diaspora that is seeking to want to establish itself or to reassert itself as part of Cameroon, because we belong, firstly, as people who come from that area, and secondly, because our actions are directly or indirectly going to impact on the well-being of Cameroon. So it includes doctors, nurses, ordinary people, trained and untrained labor, as well as political immigrants. And the stock of immigrants as a percentage of the population was about 1.4%, and their top destination was to France, Chad, Gabon, the United States, Germany, and a host of other countries. And we had skilled immigrants that were about 17.2%, and the immigration of physicians was 106, or 8.0% of physicians trained in the country, and 45.6% of physicians born in the country. That is the rate at which our doctors are leaving the country. And we should not be talking about they leaving the country without talking about the fact that they have also been impacting in the country. So if you look at remittances, the inward flow of money that has been coming to the country from outside, you realize that it has been increasing year on. And in 2010, we've been having some very significant increases there since 2009. And therefore, yeah, you can see from here, if you follow, this is in US millions of dollars. If you follow right here, you realize that there's been a constant increase. The only drop was around these 2 years. And there was a global economic showdown these years, and a financial crisis in 2008, and also a crisis on food that was affecting the world in 2008. So, implications from the anatomy of the diaspora. It means they are participating in the Cameroonian economy. By participating, the diaspora is shaping the lives and well-being of Cameroonians. By initiating productive processes, the diaspora is impacting on the GDP and GDP per capita of the country. By implication, the diaspora is participating in the growth of the country. Since the GDP growth is 3% by 2010 as an estimate, and GDP per capita is about 2,300, it is safe to say that the diaspora and other stakeholders can do better or participate more actively. Hence, they may have to review what, why, how, and where they participate in the country. How should the diaspora go? I have tried to, there are so many entry points that the diaspora can use to come to Cameroon to invest. But I've tried to coin them in groups so that we can summarize. So getting out of the traditional mind box, I'm going to explain each afterwards. Researching on what, where, how, and with whom investments can be done. Building domestic synergies or investing on a transparent collaborative agenda. Investing in innovation, modern and adaptable technologies. Investing in educational devices. Investing in pro-poor solutions. Investing in people-based industries. Investing in the value chains, hence adding value or worth to traditional products and businesses. Investing in agriculture, and using bottom-top and holistic approaches. So the first point we are going to be trying to touch, getting out of the traditional mind box. Getting out of the aid exclusive mentality towards entrepreneurial plus aid devices. We don't have to be beggars all the time. Cameroonians can generate income by doing things in the country that can employ other Cameroonians, make them to be able to get to a middle class, And when they get into the middle class, they can spend. When they spend, there's a possibility of growth within the country. And therefore, our economy should not be run by aid. Increasingly, there's been much talk about debt aid. When you listen to the works of writers and philosophers like Dambisa Moyo, you come to understand that the issue about aid in Africa has a big question mark on it. It's been happening for centuries, and we are still dependent. And why should we be still dependent when this model has been for centuries? There must be something wrong with it. And I think the other reason could be that we need to look at ourselves and to see how we can reshape our destiny by doing the things that is needed of us. So getting out of traditional prototypes. I've given some few examples here, like buying a used car, used goods, to creating new goods for relevant domestic needs. Value chain investments. An example could be cassava that can be used for many items. Recently, the Nigerian government has been trying to improve on the consumption of cassava bread. And if you look at Cameroon, cassava is growing in Cameroon in almost all the necessary agricultural belts that are productive in the country. But we still use cassava for very traditional products, like watafufu and bombolo and so on. Yes. But then if you look at cassava critically, you see that the product has got a lot of uses. Cassava flour, for instance, is also is absolutely vital. A lot of people eat bread. The price of wheat is something that is usually dictated from outside in the world market and so on. But we can be the people who shape the prices of these things if we harness the policy of trying to control the value chain, converting the goods like cassava into other valuable goods within the value chain that can be consumed locally. And in this marketing, there are some people who tell you that cassava has got maybe some smell. Just because they've been brainwashed to think that way. But bread is bread, please. Yeah, and a poor man needs food. Is it better for a poor man to stay without food than to eat bread that smells of cassava? Another item we need to get out of is the poor are not a passive lot. Some Dutch social scientists have actually written a lot on this, De Haan and Zoomers. They wrote that in 2005. We have the impression of always thinking that those who are in the country are a passive lot. They do not know their left and right, and they are uneducated, and they don't... Take, for instance, agriculture. Despite the talk about trying to educate Africans on agriculture, agriculture is a major tool of resilience for the African for as long as you can remember. And much of the practices about agriculture that are now being told to Africans have been practiced and done to be done in Africa for a long period of time, that we actually think that we can get back to traditional knowledge systems in certain ways to be able to create what is good for us and to expand on knowledge that are scientific in order to arrive at the best solutions that are good for us. So growth is good, but not equal to reduction in poverty. That is what, I like what the doctor was saying, and the other doctor, about looking at the IMF and the World Bank statistics. If you actually depend on these statistics, without looking at other indicators like subjective well-being analysis, you will be wrong, because it's going to be like you thinking that the figures actually match the reality. But let me ask you a question. How many families go in a year that have received maybe plantains from their neighbor as a gift that is not within the formal economy or the measurement of goods produced in Cameroon? How many people have been taken to the hospital because their neighbor sacrificed the time to carry them with his car to the hospital, and so on, that if you measure the cost of petrol and you multiply it with the number of informal services that are done in the country, that is not within the number of goods that are being produced in the country. When you add this, Cameroon might not be a low-income economy, as you might be saying. It might just be a country that has a different model that is a little bit different from the prototype that you understand. This is not to dismiss the prototype, but it is to say the prototype needs a little bit of questioning. So we need pro-poor services. And examples include investing in ICTs and the provision of adaptable technologies for agriculture, microcredit houses, seed banks, farmer field schools, and technical education. Researching into new areas, including solar dryers, coolers, and biofuel. Researching on what, where, how, and with whom investments can be done. This calls for feasibility and pre-feasibility studies, environmental studies and analysis. Environmental analysis includes stakeholder analysis, analysis of resources, the built-in arena, the cultural practices, the general capacities, and the limitations, political, economic, and social aspects in Cameroon. And this is something that a lot of people do not consider. They look at Cameroon as some kind of homogeneous setup. But within Cameroon, you have sub-regional specific dynamics. There are some things that do not work in Mbongaya, but are workable in Tiko. There are some things that do not work in Yaoundé, but they are workable in the East. So you must have a holistic picture of Cameroon to be able to know what to do in the country. And therefore, you need people on the ground, and you need to research for information in order to continue. So building domestic synergies, I would have loved to talk a bit about this, but we need public-private partnerships, and a good institution to work with is IRAD. You know about IRAD, it's a government agency in Cameroon. They've been doing a lot of research, and sometimes their doctors are also trying to do some other private work. And of late, I interviewed the director of IRAD in Batoke on the stream project they're trying to establish there. And many people don't know they produce streams in Cameroon. Many people don't know that the larvae is produced in Kribi and is now being supplied, the young ones are now being supplied in Limbe. Many people don't know that they produce catfish and tilapia fingerlings in Limbe. And so, a lot of people cannot even take to aquaculture recycling in the country because of naivety, ignorance, and the lack of knowledge. So we need a lot of collaborative agenda and networking between ourselves here in the diaspora and homegrown Cameroonians to be able to understand what is taking place in the country. Investing in innovation, and I was giving some examples, like we produce oil, for instance, palm oil, but why don't we make soaps? The most common soaps in the market are from Indonesia. We produce pigs, chicken, but we have a limitation in the markets. These things can be stepped up. And we also have to research and to create technological and adaptable schools for capacity building. There are thousands of youths who need creative processes during holidays, and we need to improve on the shelf life of fruits and vegetables. Much of what is lost during harvesting is after the food has been harvested, before it gets to the market. Because we don't have simple technologies to prolong the shelf life of the vegetables or of the fruits. The diaspora can invest on that. Sometimes they're not complicated. I think there should be experts within this hall that can help to prolong the shelf life of fruits and so on. And if you prolong the shelf life of fruits, it means that much more things are going to be found in the system, and maybe the prices are not going to be as high as you get them in the market, because when supply is high, it is very clear that prices go down. So we need to do on that. We need to develop local fisheries, hydroponics, and poultry. And I've talked about investing in the educational device. I think I'll answer a question on that maybe in the post-show. And moving towards pro-poor solutions and people-based industries. We need to really know that the people are the vehicle for development. And pro-poor development is vital. the most affected areas of Cameroon are the poor people. And we talk about MDGs and so on. The various aspects about these MDGs are focusing on how to alleviate poverty. And therefore, if the diaspora is interested about investing in these areas, it will help them incidentally and also help the subpopulations. If you have a school in Cameroon, you don't need to be a teacher to have a school in Cameroon. Many of us here, you don't need to be a doctor to partner with doctors in Cameroon to have a clinic. You need to think out of the mindset that has been given to you. There are a lot of opportunities in the country that we need to exploit. And we need to look at our intangible cultural aspects and exploit them. Basketry, weaving, and so on. Just like it's been done in Okavango Delta, in Rwanda, where you're seeing people using their cultural practices to expand on their realities and to make money for themselves and for their country. So, I talked about investing in the value chain. We have bamboo growing in the country, for instance, and it's not exploited. We only use bamboo to build. After the building, after they raised it, people use it as wood for fuel. But bamboo is the fastest growing grass, and you can use it for other aspects, food, for wood, and it can be treated. Now, the most eco-friendly bicycles are made of bamboo. Cameroon and the diaspora can look at the possibilities of using bamboo, which is the fastest growing grass and which is available in our country, to see how we build maybe tourist resorts from bamboo and so on. Bamboos, they say they are Indian bamboos. No, they are growing there naturally in Cameroon, right? They just need to be treated a little bit. And when you say wood is too expensive, what about bamboo that you buy for 200 or 300? The person cuts it from the bush, brings it for your decking. You can use the bamboo to make something more valuable, and it is very beautiful. So investing in agriculture and using bottom-top approaches, there is a relevant point why we need to invest in agriculture, because agricultural land is cheap, first. And when land is cheap, it means it's something that you can easily have access to. And we are also affected by the global trend of land grabbing that is affecting Africa. If we sit back as Cameroonians, the land is going to be grabbed by those who are foreigners, and we will only say Cameroon is owned by foreigners. So you need to take part of that land. And that land needs to be used, because there are so many things to do. Ecotourism does not need too much investment. You are here in a country that has a lot of containers that need to be recycled. You can supply containers and they are converted into rooms with toilets, and you use them in your acquired land and to attract tourists, and you can make exchanges between those of you who are teaching in universities for exchanges into these places these lands that you acquire. And I think it's going to be a two-way track, a win-win solution for all of us. I just want to give you some, I want to beg on, I just want to give you some data on Cameroon. I want you to look at the ruminant livestock populations in the country. They need to be stepped up. Hence, it is a good entry point for the diaspora. You can see that this statistics is from 1995 to 2004. The source is FAO, and they measure these things: the cattle, goats, the sheep, right up to the asses. But then, you know that these guys have not counted all the goats in the backyard. You know that yeah, but it's very relevant. It gives us an idea on how to get in. It is very relevant. From these numbers you're seeing here, it tells you that cattle contributes 54% of total meat consumption per inhabitant, while the proportion for sheep and goat is 13%, pig 15%, and poultry 17%. We've done nothing to include other possible nutritional things like edible frogs Yeah, we need to, cane rats, yes, snails. We need to look at all these things and to see how we can develop them, because people need to eat the food. People need them. Yeah, and increasingly, it's going to be a very nice thing to know that you're in Germany and you're the highest snail producer. What does it take to produce a snail? You need produce a snail population. You need just land, and probably it is fenced, and the snails grow naturally there, and somebody to throw them probably waste food from time to time so that they can grow and for you to harvest them. So we need to look at this kind of statistics to be able to see how we can forge ahead in the country. Then let's look about cattle rearing. It is basically expensive, and when it is done extensively, it is very low in production, and we need to think about alternatives, exotic species that they need to be brought to the country so that we can increase both meat and also the production of milk, which is also vital in stepping up the resilience against diseases like HIV, AIDS, and malaria, which is a constant and which is affecting us seriously in the country. So if you look at it, you realize that the cattle population has arguably helped Cameroonians. We've not seen meat at all in the market, but with increased population, 20 million people, and with the price of meat now climbing to 2,500 per kilogram, it is high time for us to understand the fact that we need to step up the production of meat traditionally and with scientific methods. If you look at here, you will see data on dairy production in the country, and it is from Bayami et al. And you will look at the fact that around the 90s, because of the introduction of foreign breeds, milk production increased in the country. And it can be done by the diaspora. You are in Germany, they have the thoroughbreds of cattle and so on. You can work with farmers here to establish these things in the country. These dairy products, they have some traditional knowledge systems in Cameroon that have not been exploited. Do you know about the Bafut cheese? The Bafut cheese can be branded into a very unique brand of cheese for Cameroon and sold abroad to be able to make something for the country, the image, and for the person who is in charge of that. And if you look here, you realize that per capita consumption or production of dairy products in the country was about 12.8 kilogram, while production was 12.8 kilograms, while the consumption was 15.3 kilograms, which means there is an imbalance. Yeah. So some important data on tourism in Cameroon, you realize that it has also been increasing over the past 15 years, and if you look at it, it's also from these guys, the World Tourism Organization, the Yearbook of Tourism, and the IMF and World Bank. But it tells us one common factor, that Cameroon has all the attractions that we can explore to make sure that people who are out of the country can come there, and that you yourselves can make money in the country. Difficulties, poor links between the diaspora and potential domestic resources, hence difficulty to create rapid and convenient working relations, low development of public-private partnerships within and outside the country, that is impacting on the amount of foreign direct investments, poor mindset for cooperation induced by long years of a lack of understanding between stakeholders, lack of research, lack of collaboration, and suspicion. Most people think that when you're out of the country, you don't like them, or you're claiming down. You understand? So we need to break up these barriers and to create something that can work for all, a win-win situation. Low growth rate, despite the fact that the growth is positive in Cameroon. The growth is about estimated at 3%, but it can be increased. And we should not be comfortable that we have a stable growth rate in the country. So, and the government must work hard to create viable partnerships with stakeholders of the private sector and with the civil society organizations, because only in this kind of collaborative agenda can we achieve development that is going to be meaningful for all. Some statistics on the Cameroonian economy, they say aid has part of the GDP. We are 53rd out of 129 prospected. And we don't need to go through all this, but I think some of this information, they are just as relevant as saying that the diaspora has got to come into the country to invest. So implications from the presentation are investing in proper solutions will help reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. Investing in Cameroon will lead to a favorable balance of payment. Investing will mainstream many more people into middle-income earners, hence transform the economy into an emerging economy. Multi-sectoral approaches are vital. Hence, there must be links between subsectors, ministries, and delegations between the diaspora and the domestic economy. Investing in the value chain will improve on GNP and GDP. More employment of youths will impact on the number of Cameroonians emigrating out of the country. And we just realized that the Cameroonian population is very youthful, and therefore investing in the country is a guarantee that you're going to have the workforce that is necessary for you to be able to do your work. There are a lot of people who are jobless, and therefore you should be encouraged that the jobless people are going to be brought into the system. Tourism and ICTs are also very vital. And I have made certain rebuttable presumptions within this presentation. I am saying that all economic indicators are not conclusive, therefore do not follow all of it. There are sometimes subjective well-being analyses that are excluded from the objective well-being analysis. GDP can no longer be the only most powerful tool to measure economic performance. All subpopulations within countries, despite their being in the same economic ladder, do not have the same economic strategies for survival. Hence, a common approach to vertical and horizontal inequalities is unworkable. Statistical information also reflects the organizational cultures of the institutions who have conducted the research. If the IMF and the World Bank conduct the research, it will be different from what the International Red Cross or Greenpeace does it. Because of what? The organizational cultures are different, and probably the funding nations or partners are also different. So statistical information is also reflecting, this might be analytic and informative, of the organizational cultures of the countries or the organizations that conduct them. Some approaches that have been conducted by my organization. We have done Fighting Poverty and Engaging Conservation Through Sounds, which is a workshop. We've done a conference on sustainable strategies and practices for development, which involved CBOs, NGOs, and which led to the formation of a framework that other organizations can use as a way to enter the country and to see how they can develop. We've interviewed several hundreds of diverse stakeholders on their strategies and how they are surviving and what the thing can be done to alleviate poverty in the country. You can use this link to see the videos. Wow. This link to see the videos, there are over 200, and we've been able to do that. We have a regular newsletter that has been reviewed on LDs that is going to more than 10,000 people worldwide. And we direct the holistic approach to sustainable development group on LinkedIn. And we also engage in poultry farming, because we think the best way for an organization to operate in Cameroon is not to be dependent on funding from abroad. Because you can write projects several times, they might not be funded. So you need to have a business plan within your organization to be able to generate income for yourself and for your project to sustain it. So we've been able to do a couple of things for Cameroon. We've been able to use village poultry, which is consumed by everybody in Cameroon. All sacrifices in the country start by the slaughtering of chicken. We've been able to engineer them so that they are more impressive like species. They are more giant species, and we've been able to design our own incubators in Cameroon, hoping that we are going to reach the next generation of incubators, which are going to be solar engineered. So if they are solar engineered, then I think more households and more, this is locally made, this is our incubators in the country. We've been able to use old fridges to come up with these incubators. And these incubators have the capacity to take 1,500 to 2,000 eggs. And if they have to buy them from Europe and America, I bet you, the average household will not be able to afford. So we need to adapt technologies to be able to suit these things. We are very expert in terms of qualification amongst Cameroonians. And I know people who, like this man here, who would have been able to design an incubator in Sase. So we need to have incubators flooding the market in Cameroon, because you have a lot of possibilities about adaptable technologies within the country. And conclusion, despite some difficulties, there is ample reason to think that there are many areas that can be explored to harness a more active diaspora participation in the socio-economic and political life of Cameroon. Cameroon can boast of many touristic attractions that have not been exploited. Cameroon has an agricultural and livestock sector that has potential to expand, as well as an energy sector that can be mainstreamed into more green services like biofuel, wind, solar power generation. Cameroon has potential in its expanding middle class and population to offer domestic markets for products within the value chain of many goods and services. Better research, collaboration, and the use of bottom-top, participatory, and holistic approaches will create a positive and sustainable platform for these actions. The diaspora is part and can be more active. And for references, you can watch my video on butchers and red meat and snails. You can watch that on catfish and tilapia fingerlings. You can watch that on threatened fishing livelihoods, on threats to Bimbia, Bonadikombo Forest, and you can watch videos on the conference on sustainable strategies and practices for development. There are about 26, it can be helpful. And there are other things on Inetum Africanum, which is Eru, that is being threatened. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And you just listen to a young girl who was saying that the Nigerian community here is totally very angry. Covers all the aspects of various techniques of our journal.
It was the Ijaw country of the Niger Delta of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He went to several schools to make your academic genesis was at the government college, Ujeli.
Go gather, destroy their food. Cultivated camp and that other camp, Tongo camp, you don't compensate everybody. But some of them
in its key generation sometimes. Today our focus will be in the style of T.C. Clark, a poet and writer, and we shall also be very interested in his point Akmo dancer.
Some lives are meaningful, some are empty. Lives that are meaningful, with too much meaning and riches to offer humankind. Long after some of these earthly adventures are no more, one can still find footprints of these great lives on the pavements of our contemporary life.
Good evening, you're welcome to the program Green Planet.